The Reverend Canon Wadie is canon pastor to the Arabic-speaking congregation of St. George's Anglican Cathedral in Jerusalem. Canon Farr is originally from Amman, Jordan, and he is a 2011 graduate of the Jordan University of Science and Technology with a degree in electrical engineering, and a 2017 graduate of Virginia Theological Seminary, where he and I competed to be the heaviest coffee drinkers on campus. After ordination, Canon Farr served as vicar of St. Philip's Episcopal Church in Nablus and Good Shepherd Episcopal Church in Raphidia, both of which are in the West Bank. In August of 2018, he returned to Jordan, where he served concurrently as vicar of Good Shepherd Episcopal Church in Salt and as chaplain to the Holy Land Institute for the Deaf, Jordan's premier institution for educating and treating children suffering from deafness, blindness, and muteness. Finally, in 2021, he transitioned to the cathedral staff at St. George's, where he presently serves. Abuna, dear friend, thank you so much for being with us, and it is our deepest honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, brother. It's such a pleasure to be with you all. Some of you gathered in one place and others joining us over Zoom. It's lovely to be with you this morning for you, evening for me, but it's good to come together, and it's lovely to see how technology brings us always closer together.
Indeed. Well, the first question is to ask after your family. How is your family doing in Jordan? Are they at all impacted? And how is the cathedral family doing? For those of you who may not know, a number of the cathedral staff live in the West Bank and have to transition across checkpoints to get to and from work. So we'd love to hear an update on both fronts.
Of course. Thank you for asking. My personal family, I'm not married. My parents, siblings are all doing well, but as you know, the media is always there, so people don't know what to see in the media, what to understand, what not to, what to take seriously from the media. So like any parents, they're worried. But in Amman, Jordan, people are not, let's say, directly affected, but they feel the tension in the region. They feel all that's going. So people in Amman still go to work, still go to school, still do all of that. But then the situation in the whole region is not as easy. And here at St. George's, people are affected. People are more affected, tangibly affected. Thanks be to God, we haven't had sirens at all for the past 6 days, but last week there were a couple of days where we had sirens, and rockets fell close by to Jerusalem, so people were really worried. People are still worried. They don't know what's coming. And as Abuna is father, our father is what we call a priest in our part of the world. So Abuna John said, we have a lot of employees who are not able to come to work. They live in the West Bank, and although they have permits, Jerusalem technically has been closed from the West Bank, so they're not able to come to work. Now our teachers are online. Today we had a discussion with the heads of the Christian schools here in Jerusalem, because we are invited to be able to go back to in-person teaching, but we decided that we cannot do that, because a lot of our staff cannot come in. A lot of our students who live in the outskirts of Jerusalem, but technically in the West Bank, are not able to come to school. So it's a tricky situation. People are unsure. The future is uncertain, and the aftermath of this war, well, we have a feeling that it's going to be a long time till we get to the aftermath, but when we get to it, it's going to change the way we live here. But we'll see. We're pray for people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. As I know we have a variety of folks that are joining us this morning. Not everyone knows a lot about the Anglican Diocese of Jerusalem and the Middle East. And I wonder if you might begin this morning by just sharing a little bit about the diocese, maybe a little bit about the history, the number currently of parishes, institutions, etc.
Of course, it's my pleasure. So although technically we have a small geographical area in our diocese, but our diocese covers 5 countries, and which makes life a bit interesting, let's put it that way. So we have Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Palestine. And all these places, geographical places, are part of the same diocese. Now, as we all know, these 5 countries do not have wonderful, perfect relationships with each other, which makes sometimes the places where we can meet limited, which means travel and all of that is always something that we think about. Crossing borders is something that we have to do to be part of the diocese. Sometimes we cannot all meet here in Jerusalem. So, for example, when we have our diaconal synod, although we'd always love to have it here at the cathedral, that's not always a possibility. And that's why we have our church synod in Amman, Jordan, where everyone can come, all people from all parts of the diocese can come together. Now, historically, the Diocese of Jerusalem has been, the Anglican Church has been here present in Jerusalem since 1841, approximately. And when it started actually as a joint diocese between the Lutheran Church and the Anglican Church. And that's how it started, remained for the first 3 bishops, the time of the 3 bishops. And it was an Anglican bishop, a Lutheran bishop, an Anglican bishop. And then after that is when they decided to split the diocese so that we have 2 dioceses. One of the main, 2 of the main objectives of the diocese when it started was to enhance the relationship with the Greek Orthodox Church. And I'm really happy to say that that is something that we can say is true and is something that the church worked on. And now we see ourselves working really well with his beatitude Patriarch Theophilus. We have great relationships not only with him but with the rest of the churches here, and I'm sure we're going to talk a bit about that later on. But the second thing that it was doing ministry and bringing the word of God to people. And our forefathers did that by building parishes, but also by building institutions. So we see ourselves as continuing the work of Christ himself here. So teaching, healing, and caring for people. And we do that through our parishes, but also through our institutions. So at the moment, we have about 27 parishes around the 5 countries that we named, but we have about 35 institutions, from hospitals to schools, homes for the elderly, school rehabilitation centers, guest houses, and some others. So we see ourselves, working towards the kingdom of God by serving everyone around us. And this is something that we still say about all our institutions. When people come to the institution, any of our institutions, the first question we have to ourselves is, can we offer the service that this person needs? And that's the only important question. We never look at religion, nationality, background, anything else, whether they can pay or not. The only question we ask, can we offer to this person what they need? If the answer is yes, then everything else is not important. And because of our network, if you will, of institutions, sometimes what we cannot offer in one institution, we can offer in another. So, for example, here in Jerusalem, we have a school, St. George's School, which is across the street from here. And we have a rehabilitation center, Princess Basma Rehabilitation Center, which also has its own school. And it's a school where people with special abilities and other students come together and be in the same classes. So last year, while we were doing our interviews and welcoming new students, we found a student who needed some special care. He's on the autistic spectrum. And we don't have autistic classes here at St. George's, but we have them at Princess Basma. So we sent him to Princess Basma with a referral, and they were able to welcome him and give him the care that he needs. And he's flourishing now. I keep up with that student, and he's doing really well. So that's a bit about the diocese. Our parishes are mostly indigenous people. We only have expat parishes in 3 locations. We have one here in Jerusalem. We have one in Amman, actually 4 locations. We have one in Lebanon, and we used to have one in Syria before the war in Syria. And now we're looking forward to when that time comes to reopen that parish in Syria, expat congregation, that is.
Well, Thank you, Father Wadie. As you mentioned, you have a number of institutions, one of which is the Arab Ali Hospital in Gaza. And I wonder if you could just speak for a moment about the status of the hospital, how things are going there, and if maybe briefly too, about the Christian community in the Gaza Strip as well.
Of course. So let's start with the Gaza Strip in general and the Christian community there. So in Gaza, we only have about 1,000 Christians left. That's it. That's a very small number, as you could all imagine, out of 2.2 million people. And there are only 3 Christian entities, if you will, in Gaza. So the Greek Orthodox Church has a church compound and a parish there. The Catholic Church has a church compound and a parish there. And us, the Anglican Church, we have the hospital, and we only have a chapel in the hospital. We don't have an active parish in there, although we have some of our parishioners who work in the hospital. I don't know if luckily enough is the word to use, but the Wednesday before everything started, so almost 10 days ago now or something like that, Archbishop Hussam was able to visit our hostel in Gaza, was able to meet with the Christian community in the hostel itself and have a prayer with them and check up on the work of the hospital. So let's just talk a bit about the ministry of the hospital before we go into the current situation of the hospital. The Ahli Arab Hospital in Gaza is a place that's open for all. We welcome everyone to come and get the treatment that they need. It's a 60-bed hospital, and like any other hospital, they have their own staff and doctors, but then they have contracts with doctors who would come in for special operations and special needs. In the hospital, we have a burn unit. We're actually working with the Augusta Victoria Hospital here in Jerusalem to start a cancer treatment center in the hospital, because it's really hard for people from Gaza to get permits to come here to Jerusalem to get the treatment that they need. So we already started with phase 1 of that project, and we have started our cancer diagnostic unit there in the hospital. And after that, we were working on cancer treatment. Also, we are working with our own Princess Basma. Sorry, I keep pointing, but because it's right there on that mountain. Princess Basma Institute, which is the only center actually recognized in the West Bank for treating people or children with disabilities. And we have people from all around the West Bank coming to our institution for treatment. And again, we saw that it's really hard for people from Gaza to come for treatment. So we're starting with the Ahli Hospital and the Princess Basma, a joint project of initiating a center there in the Ahli Hospital for treating young children with disabilities. So those are some of many projects that the hospital is trying to do. Now, with the current situation, the hostel has been turned into a refuge point for everyone. And the reason for that is water has been cut, electricity has been cut, supplies have been cut. And the hospital has its own electric generator, has some reservoir of water. I don't want to go into the details of what the hostel actually has specifically. But with what they have, the hostel has not only been a treatment center for many, and most, if not all, the burnt cases have been sent to our hostel because we have a good burnt unit. But the operations are still working because the government hostels have all been turned into triage. So if you needed anything more, you're going to the other hostels, and that's when people come for our hostel. But also many families who have found that their houses have been destroyed or they're under risk. They've been fleeing to the hostel and the Christian community to the hostel and to the 2 other parishes there. And our hostel now is housing approximately 5,000 people who are there for treatment and for refuge. So a lot of people are in the hostel. I don't know if you've seen this on Archbishop Hussam's page, but last night, approximately 23 hours ago now, our hostel was hit by a rocket, an Israeli rocket, and thankfully it hit the cancer center where we didn't have a lot of people. So only 4 employees were injured, and thankfully not seriously injured, and no one died. But 2 floors in the hostel were damaged, and the floors with the equipment, for cancer treatment and cancer diagnostics have been hit sadly. But thankfully, the rest of the hostel is still intact, at least until now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the update. And just before we sort of transition to the next phase of the conversation, could you speak just briefly, in case folks don't know this as well, a little bit about the difference between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank in relationship to being sort of the whole of the Palestinian territories, and to just say if there are any sort of significant updates about our brother and sister communities, the parishes and institutions that are in the West Bank currently, and the status of those institutions.
Yes, definitely. What makes Palestine, the current Palestine, if you will, the part of the two-state solution is the Gaza Strip, which sadly has been a big prison for the past 16, 17 years almost now, with people not being able to go in and go out freely, and life being so restricted. On the other hand, in the West Bank, where I had the pleasure of serving, it's a bit different. People, it's open. People come and go. They cannot come into Jerusalem, although this side of Jerusalem is technically part of the West Bank, but they still cannot come here without permits. But they were able to travel through the borders with Jordan. They were able to import and export in the West Bank. Now, sadly, with what's going on at the moment, since last Saturday, the West Bank has technically been cut off. The West Bank has been closed. People from the West Bank, although they might have permits to come and work in East Jerusalem, they have not been allowed to come. People in the West Bank also who work in Israel, who have permits and have jobs and have careers, sadly have been thrown out of their careers and sent back to the West Bank. So although they officially are workers and everything is legal for them, they are not welcomed back into jobs with the current situation. And even the borders between the West Bank and Jordan are not as open as they were last week. So even that is restricted now for people to travel. The situation of the people in the West Bank currently, it's a bit on edge. It's not, perfectly calm, as we believe in the gospel, when one part hurts, the rest of the body hurts with it. So people in the West Bank are joining in with making known their protest about, being under occupation and about what's happening to their brothers and sisters in Gaza. We have a lot of actually Gaza. I'm not sure we've talked about this, Father John, but what is happening with a lot of people from Gaza who used to work in Israel who had permits is when this started, their employers didn't want them anymore. Didn't want them anymore. So technically, they just threw them to the nearest checkpoint leading into the West Bank. So in our school in Ramallah now, we have a refugee center for those. And in other places, of course, because technically their homes and where they used to live they're not allowed to go back to them in Israel. And they cannot go back to Gaza because Gaza is under attack and it's a locked area now. So they're just living in refugee schools and holes and whatever they can find in the West Bank until they can get back home. And as I said, we opened our school in Ramallah as one of those centers that are welcoming those people who have nowhere to go at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, such a sobering reality. I want to transition though and speak in more optimistic context. As I shared with you, the focus of our work this year as a parish is on this question of the why of the church. What is it that motivates us to remain committed in our faith, but also remain committed as part of faith communities? And while we acutely feel the difficulties today of the increased violence and war in the region, As you well know, the truth is that things have been unsettled and tense for many years now. And I wonder if you might be able to share, both from your personal experience, but also in your professional capacity, the work you've done with young people. What is the why of the church in your context? What personally motivated you to stay a part of the church? What motivated you in your own faith life as a young person? And what have you seen in terms of the resiliency of faith among young people throughout the region today, and how their faith continues to be a significant part of their identity in life?
Thank you, Abuna. It's a really important topic, and I'm really glad that you're taking the time with your congregation to think deeply about this topic. And it's been a topic that's on our minds, and we've I'll talk more about the youth in a second, but we've been asking our youth this year, are we just simply followers of Christ, or are we disciples of Christ? And we've been pondering on that, and what does it mean to be a disciple? And I think that's a really important thing to think about. And it builds up to the why of, why be a Christian? Let me tell you a bit about myself. Growing up, I come from a Christian family. My grandmother used to take me on with her to church every Sunday morning. And then when my parents, so in our part of the world, Sunday is a working day. So most churches would have a second service, either Sunday evening, Saturday evening, or some other day of the week for those who work. So I used to go with my grandma on Sunday morning to church. And then on Sunday evening, I would used to go with my family to church. And it just was part of my narrative. But the more I grew in my faith and I thought about it, it was the place where I belonged. My relationship with God, the salvation that we got through Christ, all gave me some centering in my life, all gave me a purpose. We are part of God's ministry. We are part of God's work here on earth. It's not our ministry. All those ideas were part of me growing up and me becoming, journeying, if you will, deeper and deeper into my own faith and into why are we Christians. And there's always one thing that for me is a very important distinction to make and help people make. So a long time ago, well, maybe not that long, in our Jordanian ID cards, we used to have a slot that says religion. And you'd have Christian, or you'd have Muslim, or whatnot. And we used to make this distinction, you don't want to be a Christian by ID, and that's where that sentence comes from. Because, we can be born in Christian families, we can be churchgoers, we can even attend church every week, but are we Christian because we chose to be Christian, or are we Christian because it's a tradition that we inherited from someone, from our parents, from our grandparents, from a friend? We stumbled into a youth group once and we liked it and we're stuck in church ever since? Or are we Christians because we find something deeper, we find something more, we find sustenance in it? And I believe that God calls each and every one of us to be part of this family in a specific place for a specific reason. And it's important for us to remember that. One of the eye-opening experiences that I had while I was studying to become an electrical engineer, I was studying, I'm from Amman, Jordan, which is in the center of Jordan. I was studying in a university which was to the north of Jordan. And I met a dear friend of mine till this day, but he comes from a very small village. And in that village, there are no Christians, none whatsoever. So I was the first Christian that he's ever met in his life. And it was a sobering moment for me to realize, at the young age of 18 or 19, to realize that what I do for that person, at least before we became friends, when he would go home, he would not say, Wadie did this or Wadie did that. He would be like, the Christian did this. That Christian boy that I met in university did this or did that or spoke about this. And from then, that put me on a path of thinking, I need to be intentional in my faith, and I need to be intentional in what I say and what I do. And this is the journey that we're going with the youth now on. And what we try to help our youth understand is that the why is really important. We are part of this community. We are part of the culture that's here. But at the same time, we are part of a heavenly culture. We are part of a heavenly community. And the why is, well, without Christianity, without Christ, we are like everyone else. We don't have that hope in a brighter future. We don't have that hope in a peaceful eternal life with God. We don't have that hope of everlasting life. It all comes from our personal relationship with Christ, such a relationship that we cannot get from anyone else. It's our relationship with God. And I think another thing that was really important to me while we were together, Abuna, at VTS, is realizing that God calls each and every one of us to do ministry in a specific place. When I was in the States, I was asked, would you want to stay in the States, or would you want to do ministry any other place than in your home diocese? And I was like, I don't believe so. I believe God called me from the diocese to serve the Diocese of Jerusalem. And that's a big part of it. So I think for me personally, the why has to do with two things. A, because that God loved us so much that he came to earth to give us salvation, to give us eternal life. And out of that, if I buy into that, if I believe that, then God is calling me to be part of God's ministry. I'm not here just as a participant, as someone who's watching a theater. I'm part of the act. I have a responsibility to do in this ministry. And for me, that's the why, and the why is magnified, if you will, when we go through hardships like this. Nowadays, with all the turmoil, with all the sadness that's happening around us, we are reminded that we are not alone. God is with us. God sustains us. God protects us. God leads us. And yes, we are going through hard times. Yes, we don't know what the future holds for us and our communities here in the West Bank and Jerusalem and Israel. But even through all of that, we are not alone. God is with us. God cares for us. God loves us. And it's out of God's love that we are called to love others. So sorry, I didn't want to. I don't want to go on a tangent and give a sermon, and that's not what I'm doing here. But
preach, always and everywhere. No, that was beautiful. That was beautiful, brother. And I wonder if you could share a little bit more about your work with youth and young people, especially, because I think that is something that is particularly of keen interest to us. Just to know, you'll remember Amanda Akes
yes,
from BTS as well. She is spearheading. She will be with us later this year, but she is spearheading an effort in the Diocese of Washington called Rising Generations, connecting our faith and the faith of all of our generations in the church with the young people coming up today, empowering them and helping them to have that richness of commitment that you so passionately speak about. And I wonder if you could share just a little bit more about your time in Nablus, especially we'll get into some of the ecumenical dynamics in a moment, but to speak about your work with the youth there, your time in Salt, and what you currently do with the camps.
Yes, of course. So if I'm honest, I think part of my upbringing, part of what matters to me as a priest is youth ministry. That's how I started back in 2007 when I finished high school and started my undergrad. I was called by two separate people to be part of the youth ministry in the diocese. Well, by a Sunday school teacher in my home parish, the Parish of the Redeemer in Amman. She asked me if I wanted to be a Sunday school teacher. And I said yes. I've been an adamant Sunday school goer since I was young, and it was something that I wanted to give back. I wanted to help with this. And then I was asked by a priest if I wanted to be part of the youth ministry in the diocese and help with the youth camps. And again, it's something that I grew up with, something that I love and I just wanted to give back. And that's how my ministry with the youth started. And it's a ministry that I'm proud of and I love a lot, because it helps us, well, actually, it puts us in that responsibility of working with our kids, our youth. And a lot of people say that the youth are the future of the church. I tend to disagree. If I'm gonna quote Archbishop Hussam, he says, they are not only the future of the church, they are the present and the future of the church, because without them, we will not have a future. And it's that responsibility we have in Arabic, a hymn that I love so much, that our faith, the nice thing about our faith is the faith that has been handed down through generations. And then it's our responsibility to hand it down to the next generation. So, you know, we've, in our diocese, we've always had a lot of youth work. We used to rely on each parish to do their own youth ministry. And then once a year would bring the youth together in youth camps, diaconal youth camps. But lately, in the past few years, we've been thinking, this is not enough. You know, this is good, but let's be honest, not all our parishes have the youth activities that we would like them to have. Not all our priests are gifted with working with the youth. So how can we do what is more than that? How can we take it to the next level? And we did a couple of things. So the first thing we did as a diocese now is that we have youth committees. They plan all the work and activities of the youth in the diocese. And what they do is, let's start with who is in that committee. It's not only clergy in that committee. It's clergy, it's youth leaders. You have a group of people who come together representing the different parts of the diocese. Actually, we have two of them, one for Jordan and one for Palestine and Israel. And it's by bringing the youth into the conversation that we were able to make more activities for them. And what we're striving towards now is not only having youth camps once a year, is having a youth activity on a monthly basis. So each month there's something happening that this youth committee is doing. Every month, this youth committee is having a day where it's bringing people together, having a Zoom meeting, having a lecture. There's something happening on a monthly basis. And some months, actually, we have two events that are happening. And that, you know, increasing the number of times that the youth gather together, that just means that, you know, they're coming together. They're getting to know each other, and they're getting to be attached to the church in a way. And let's be honest, when we were youth, some of us went to church because we really loved God and we wanted to be in church. Others went to church because we wanted to see our friends, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that is the door for us to bring the youth in. You bring them to see each other. You bring them because they are with their friends. You bring them to have fun. But then it's our responsibility as clergy, our responsibility as their adults, our responsibility as youth leaders to, on that way, help them see that the reason you're here is not your friends. That's a good reason. But the main reason you want to be here is to have that personal connection with Christ. You need to come because you want to know God. You want to know Christ. You want to be in an active relationship with Christ and God. And when they have that, you know, when they transition from going there because they like their friends or going there because the youth pastor is such a nice person to them and they're taking care of them and listening to them, to they're not coming because of the youth pastor or because of their friends. They're coming because they want to be in a relationship with God. I think that's when we can say that we have achieved the goal that we want. This year, our focus with the youth has been discipleship. And we've been talking about it. You know, what does it mean to be a disciple? How do I become a disciple? We've been sending, you know, more activities for them via WhatsApp, creating WhatsApp groups and sending verses, sending hymns, in a way so that they're still connected together as a group when they're not in the youth camps or in the youth activities that we have. And as I said, starting, I believe in a couple of weeks, we will start to have for the older youth bi-monthly Zoom activities, you know, when people come together to hear a lecture, to worship together, knowing that they work in different places, they go to university in different places. So bringing them in person is not that easy, but having that alternative way for them. So in short, what we are striving to do is keeping the youth in the church, but keeping them in the church in a way that matters to them, let's be honest, for some of them, our Sunday worship is foreign. It's not what they know or understand. And I'm not one of the people advocating that they should not know that. I'm a traditionalist, I'm a liturgist, I love liturgy, I love the tradition of the church. But for them to understand it, we need to explain it. You know, in the confirmation class that I had, hopefully we'll be having confirmation soon in the cathedral, well, God willing. We went over the liturgy. I went over the Eucharist liturgy with them word by word, explaining every bit of it and why we do it and how it's connected. We went over morning and evening prayer. And some of them who have been youth members, you know, who have come to our youth activities for many years, who have participated in morning and evening prayer and in the Eucharist, came to me afterwards and they were like, this is the first time that we understand what we're saying and why we're saying it. And that's important. I want us all to think about ourselves. Do we think about the liturgy? Do we understand the liturgy? Well, if we don't, how can we pass that to the next generation? Because it's important. Our church tradition is important. And when the youth understand that, when the youth are connected to God through the church, that's when they are the present and future of the church. We have people who think, you know, I can be at home and pray for myself. Well, yes, you need to be at home and pray for yourself. But again, you need to be part of this community of faith, because together we strengthen ourselves.
Thank you. And we didn't even talk about this, but last week our service was an instructive Eucharist, and so we've just done the exact same thing. So I certainly commend the practice as well. It was very life-giving for us to do that too.
Yeah.
I want to kind of build on that just a little bit, but also transition to another element of your context. When you think about worship, we often are sort of in a space where our differences are highlighted within our Christian family. And one of the great beauties of the many times that I have been with you in your context is the way in which the denominations come together. The Christian family is unified in a much more holistic way than we might find in other parts of the world. And I mentioned to you, we have the great blessing here of sharing our space with brother and sister Anglicans from the Church of South India. And they, in their very nature, are a joint expression of Christianity, having been created out of a number of different denominations in India. So I wonder if you could spend just a little bit of time talking about the ecumenical realities in the Holy Land and how the churches come together to do the work of the gospel.
Of course. So I'm gonna talk about this in two aspects, if that's okay with everyone. I'm gonna talk about it from the top down and from the bottom up, and I'm gonna start with the second one and then go to the first one. So I always go back to my well, not home parish, but my first parish, when I want to talk about ecumenism, from, you know, the congregation level building up. Nablus is a lovely city. And in Nablus, we only have 600 Christians at best. I don't think that's the proper number, but I think we are 550, something like that. But let's say 600 Christians. And those Christians are divided between 4 denominations. You have the Anglican Church, you have the Greek Orthodox Church, you have the Catholic Church, and then you have the Catholic Malachite Church. Yes. So you have those 4 churches in Nablus, and there are only 600 people divided amongst those 4 churches. Biggest being the Greek Orthodox, then the Catholic Church, then the Anglican Church. And however, if you look at the people, it's one family. I had a parishioner who was on the vestry. His brother was on the vestry in the Catholic Church, and his other brother was on the vestry in the Greek Orthodox Church, and his last brother was married to the daughter of the Malachite priest. So, you know, one family. So in Nablus, what happened is the churches has always have such a close connection to each other. They had one Sunday school. That's it. They would go to one Sunday school. Everyone would go to that Sunday school. And that Sunday school used to be in the Anglican church. They had one Scouts group, and that Scouts group used to be in the Catholic church, and so on. So, they knew that with their numbers, they needed to be together. They needed to do things together. And they actually started a contract between the churches that say, we need to be united rather than apart. And they got the blessing of the patriarchs of the different denominations. But what they do in that contract is that they decided that they all celebrate Christmas according to the Western calendar. They all celebrate Easter according to the Eastern calendar. And that's that. That's what they are going to do. And that's what they want to do. And that's what they did. And till this day, that's what they do all the time. They work together as one. And, when we have the big Christmas parades, it's everyone together. We have one big parade, one Scouts group, all the priests come together. And then after that, we all go light the Christmas tree and then go to the Greek Orthodox Church because it's right next to the Christmas tree. And that's where we celebrate Christmas. And then when it's time to receive official well-wishers for Christmas and Easter, there's a rotation. So each holiday, one of the churches will open a church hall. You'll have the vestry members from all the parishes. You'll have the priests from all the parishes standing together to welcome those well-wishers coming from the government, coming from the Muslim community, coming from the Samaritan community. And we did that all together. One of the things that I will never forget is our Easter Holy Saturday parade. So on Holy Saturday, we would all gather at the Church of the Well. So the Samaritan lady who took with Jesus, that's in Nablus. And there is a Greek Orthodox, lovely, lovely church there. So we'd all gather there and wait for the Scouts to bring the flame that came from Jerusalem to Ramallah that comes to Nablus. And as soon as that flame comes, and the bells of the church are rung, we go together as clergy into the church. We light the candles on the altar and we have a prayer. Then after that, we drive up to Rafidia, where you have all four churches in one strip of roads. So we park the cars and you have the Scouts group, you have a lot of people. If you looked at that procession, you thought that the Christians in that community had 5,000 people in them. But we were there in that procession and we would walk to each one of the four churches. As we got closer to the church will ring its bells. The clergy together in unity would go to the altar of that church, light the candles, light the Paschal candle, have a prayer, and proceed to the next church. And we did that like clockwork every year. I was only honored to be with them once, but that's how they do it. And we had the agreement that, in front of the community, in the work that we do, in the ministry that we do, we are one. And even till this day, my friend, Father Jamil, who's serving there, when we're setting up some youth activities, you'd be like, okay, just give me a second. He'll call the other priests and make sure that no one else has a activity on the same day, so that all the youth can go to all the activities that are done by all the churches. But when it goes to our own parishes, when it goes to the way we run our liturgy, we don't, interfere in that. All clergy are welcome to come and participate. I've attended Eucharists, I've attended services, burials, funerals, weddings, the whole Eucharist in all the churches there. Even on Monday, Thursday, I was at the Thurifer at the Greek Mennonite Catholic Church. So, we worked together, we prayed together, but we respected that each one of us does the liturgy in their own way. And that was such a blessing to witness. Now, on the other side, talking here about Jerusalem. So here in Jerusalem, there is the head of the church's council, which has the patriarchs and the heads of the churches of the 13 denominations here in Jerusalem, which are the four main families, if you will, that are present in Jerusalem. So you have the Protestant family, which is the Anglican Church and the Lutheran Church. You have the Catholic family with all the different churches that they have. You have the Greek Orthodox family, and then you have the Syriac Orthodox family, the Oriental, sorry, Orthodox family. And the relationships that I've been blessed to see between the patriarchs of these churches, all 13 of them coming together. They come together for Eastern Christmas. They come together for Western Christmas. They come together for Easter twice. They have regular meetings when they just check in on each other. And especially nowadays, as you might have seen, at least Abuna John have seen, they've been coming together more often because of what's happening. So last Friday, I was honored to be part of the group that came together, the heads of the churches that have people in Gaza. We came together, we prayed together, and we had a statement. And although the statement came out from the whole council of heads of churches, but they come together, they pray together, they have such a lovely relationship with each other. So that's the other side of the coin, if you will. Sometimes I feel that we have really good connections at the top, but it doesn't trickle down the whole way through. And I wish that we'd have more of that. But in general, it's such a lovely ecumenical feeling that we have here. And lastly, John, I know I've talked a lot about this, but it's a lovely topic to talk about. I want to tell you about my experience, not this past Holy Week, but the one before. So here in Jerusalem, we follow the Western calendar like you all. But in Jordan, our churches follow the Eastern calendar. So I was here at the Cathedral celebrating the Holy Week and Monday, Thursday, and the Triduum as an Anglican priest. And the following week, to be honest, because I just wanted some time not to be, just to enjoy worship, I went to the Catholic church that's right next door to my parents' house. And I went there. And as soon as they saw me, they were like, "Oh, do you have your cassock with you?" I was like, "Yes, I do." They were like, "Well, just vest and be with us." I was like, no. I did that. Honestly, I did that for one night, for Monday, Thursday. I vested and I was with them. But then for the rest of the Triduum, I was like, "Thank you for the invitation, but I honestly just want to sit and worship myself. I want to be there in the congregation, not behind the altar." And that's why I came to the Catholic church instead of going to the Anglican church, because my beloved brothers would never let me sit. They would be like, "Oh no, you need to do something." But it's that lovely ecumenical work that we have together that, once they saw me walk in, they were like, "Do you have your cassock on with you? Just put it on and come and sit behind the altar with us."
That's beautiful, beautiful. And I just, because I don't know that very many people that are on this conversation today heard Archbishop Hossam's address to Virginia Seminary on Friday. Can you remind me, I believe he said that the statement put out by the heads of churches, which is again 13 denominations, was written and signed off on in less than 48 hours. Is that right?
So what he said actually is that usually, nowadays, not when they started a while back, nowadays, they are able to get statement out within 48 hours. But the statement that you see on Friday was actually written, revised, and approved within 2 hours.
2 hours. 2 hours.
Yeah.
13 denominations putting out a statement together in 2 hours. It speaks to the incredible unity that you were speaking about. Just a couple of last questions for us this morning, and I will just note we'll have maybe time for 1 or 2 questions. So if there's anything, those of you who are joining us online, if you want to put something in the chat, or those of you, if you would like to write something, we might have time for 1 or 2 questions. But as you know, Father, that we have a group planning to come from St. Anne's on pilgrimage next February. And I know there are others in the diocese and around the region who are also contemplating pilgrimage trips as well. Can you say something to those who are maybe feeling somewhat anxious about that prospect right now? What words of advice would you have?
Definitely. So first of all, let me just say this in general. If you are thinking about or contemplating coming on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, or the lands of the Holy One, I would strongly recommend that. I promise you that it's an experience that will change your life forever. So weirdly enough, I grew in Jordan, the first time I came to these lands was in 2016. I don't know if you know this, Father John, or not, but the first time I came here was in 2016, and as I came as a pilgrim, and that was a wonderful experience that I had personally. So I know what I'm sharing this out of a personal experience. Coming here as a pilgrim, it's a lovely experience. You come, you get to worship, you get to be ushered around. It's a lot of running because you want to do so much in such a few little time. So in general, I just encourage you to do that. Now, secondly, about being worried about the situation now. February is a long time away. I know that it doesn't feel like that for you all. I totally understand that, but for us here, that's a long time from now. And yes, we are going through turmoil at the moment. Yes, things are white and easy at the moment. But I would encourage you to keep the faith, stick to the plan, wait and trust. Trust that we as a diocese here will let you know that, if things are not settled down, you will be told, you'll be told quite frankly, this is the situation. Iyad, who is who's the person who's working with Father John, he's a parishioner of mine, and I know him really well. He has ears on the ground all the time, and if it's not safe, he will let people know. And I'll give you two examples of what happened since last Saturday to today in the past 8 days. So during that time, we had the International Commission for Anglican Orthodox Theological Dialogue here in Jerusalem. And although it was a rush, but when things got to a point where we thought it's not safe, we got people out. The college had a course and they did the same. Iyad had a group and he did the same. We all, even when you're here, if things start to go not exactly where they need to be, people will let you know that it's starting to get unsafe and people will get you out. However, I've been here for the past 2.5 years. This is the first time that anything like this has ever happened. And I would encourage you to stick to the plan for now. Keep going. I already have your pilgrimage on my calendar. I'm waiting for you guys to come. I'm looking forward to meeting some of you, I think, in person. I don't know who's planning to come or not. But as an experience, I promise you it's going to be a life-changing experience. And as of worries, I promise you that you have friends here that are always worried about, what the situation is, but are so experienced that they can read the situation. And if before you come, the situation is not settled down, which I honestly believe and hope that it will. But if it's not, Iyad will let you know, I will let you know, Father John will let you know. And I encourage you to keep the faith, and it's a lovely experience. So if you're not coming on this course or this group, I'd encourage you to come again later on. And I guarantee you that after a pilgrimage, there'll be a lot to take in, but it'll be worth it.
Thank you, brother. Just one quick question, and then I'm going to ask you my final question. Someone asked in the comment, they were clarifying the Archbishop's plans for this next week. And I was able to reply that he is not able to come to be at the National Cathedral, sadly. Do you by any chance know, is there a plan to do maybe like a live streamed discussion, or will they just reschedule? I don't know if you have an answer to that at this moment, but do you have any idea?
Yeah, I can confirm that sadly the Archbishop will not be able to be present. Okay. As he said on Friday to VTS, sorry, I know most of you were not, well, you were not there, but I strongly believe that it is important for all of us to be here at this time with our parishes, with our parishioners, with our institutions. As you all know and understand, this is going to have a huge impact, not only on our hospital in Gaza, all our institutions are going to go through change because of this. All our institutions, like even our schools, when you go to homeschooling, people are, our income is going to go down, but our expenses are not. All of that has to be taken into effect, and all of that would need the Archbishop's immediate attention and personal attention. So it's going to be really hard for him to travel, although I know that personally he would wish to be with you all next week. He was really looking forward to it. However, whether or not there have been plans made for him to have a live session or for him to postpone the whole trip to another time, I honestly have no idea. I can ask and I'll let you know, Abuna, but I have no idea.
That would be great. I'm sure the National Cathedral will communicate that as well. But yes, thank you for communicating his regrets as well. I know how important his relationships are to him here, and his sadness and not being able to be here as well. One final note, and sort of building exactly on what you were talking about just now, I will be sharing with those who are gathered here and with my congregation the links to the American Friends of the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem and Middle East, links to contribute financially to the work you are doing. And I would just invite you to say a brief word about what benefit you all receive from our financial support.
Thank you, brother. Here's the thing. We have a lovely relationship with, the American Friends of the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem and then of Jerusalem, and any donation that's made through them gets to the cathedral here, gets to the national offices, and if it's earmarked, it goes directly to the institution. And as I said, we have those 35 institutions, and they're all charity institutions. Most. We have the guest house here, and it's one of the institutions that actually generate money that we use to support the other institutions that have no income. And as I said, for us, we are doing God's ministry, and we are doing the ministry that the church was entrusted to do from the beginning. And that's why we never ask the question when people come to us, whether they can pay or not, because we trust and know that God will provide. And as you can all imagine, the situation in Gaza is critical, is going to need a lot of money to renovate the hospital, but more importantly, to keep the hospital going with the medical supplies that they need, with the food that they need, with helping people to rebuild their houses, helping the Christian community to rebuild its presence when that time comes, and hopefully it will come. But most urgently now is to hopefully, as soon as the corridor is open, the humane corridor is open, to get food, to get fuel, to get medicine to the hospital. And I don't know, Abuna John, if you have, I'm sure you have Father Don on Facebook, and you can see, and you feel free to share with your congregation what he's writing. But one of the notes that Sohaila said, Sohaila is the head of the hostel, is that within a week, and she said this 3 or 4 days ago, she expects not only our hospital would be out of medicine, but all the hospitals in Gaza would be out of medicine. So it's really important to have that fund ready, so that as soon as we can get things to them, we can do that. But not only that, as I said, the donations that come and help all our institutions to do the service and do the ministry that they do. So what I would encourage you to do is, we have started an appeal for Gaza. So if that's something that's on your heart, then you can donate to that. But if you are personally have an interest in different aspects of ministry, then I encourage you to go on the American Friends website, to go on the diocesan website, and see those different ministries that we have. Abuna John can help you with that. I can help with that. If you have a particular interest and you want to, okay, I'm interested in this. Do you have an institution that works with that aspect? And I'm more than happy to steer you, if you will, towards the institution that will probably be doing something that's on your heart. It's we value your friendship, we value your prayers mostly, But let's be honest, with your donations, we can keep the ministry happening here and the last, especially through these times where things are, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, at least the near future, until things settle back down and we can go back to where we can support our own ministry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, friends, thank you so much. Thank you so much, dear brother, for everything that you have shared with us today, for your time. Can we please give him a round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you for the invite, and thank you for this opportunity. And I was really hoping to be able to meet you all in person, but the day will come, I'm sure. Maybe here in Jerusalem, maybe over across the small pond that's between us in the future.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
We can discuss the theological efficacy of this at another time, but would you be able to bless us and dismiss us, my dear friend? We covet your prayers. Thank you.
Was there a discussion about this on Friday? We'll talk about this later. Let's not do this now.
That sounds good.
I'm sure there was a discussion on Friday about this. So would you? I'm going to start with a blessing in English, but I'll translate to Arabic so that you get both languages. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
And may the God of peace, who gives us peace and tranquility, who gives us sustenance, walks with us always, be with you in everything you do in your life. وبركة الله القادر على كل شيء الآب والابن والروح القدس تكون معكم وتستمر فيكم الآن وإلى الأبد. آمين.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you,
brother. Thank you, everyone. And
prayers,
have a lovely rest of your day.
Yes, prayers continue with you always.